Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, I have a guest that I can't even imagine that I'm able to bring him to you. He is an internationally celebrated psychic counselor. He is an author, a writer, a lecturer. He is a teacher, a numerologist. Just because he's called the psychic's psychic, it's not limiting his skills. He's also a teacher of Reiki, and his name is Vincent Barra. And I am delighted to have you on my show today, Vincent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you're welcome, Tracy. And the full name is actually Vincent J. Barra. The J is very, very important in my name, and I insist that people use it because it has to do with numerology.
I understand that one. I think when I came to you for some readings in 2011 and 2012, you were the first official person to tell me that I needed to change my name. And my name is now Tracey, Tracey, and it used to be Robin. So thank you for helping me.
Oh, did you notice a shift in your life or your perception of life and your surroundings?
Yes, and I chose Tracey with the EY because it's a 9 energy, and I feel like I'm getting more done in my life. I feel like it's added some energy. It's really boosted my confidence, and it's given me at least a public persona. My mom still calls me Robin, and that's okay too.
The most amazing thing, and I don't know why this is, but even on my radio show, when someone calls in and they use a fictitious name, I know that.
It feels weird, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Because in numerology, the study of numbers, each letter has a number, and each number has meanings to it. Just like in astrology, each planet has meaning according to how they are aligned with each other. It produces what will happen, or a prediction of what will happen. Well, in numerology, it is the same way. There are certain names, and names because they have sound to them, and they have numbers because each letter is a number. If you feel out of balance in life, look at your name.
I was going to ask you, a lot of people say that, oh, well, it's the name you were born with, and it doesn't change the energy if you change your name. I know it did for me, and I think in Native American cultures, and I say that very broadly with complete ignorance, have gifted people's names at each stage of their life. And I know other cultures do that too. You must also subscribe to the fact that it does change our energies.
Oh, yeah. Well, just think about how people treat you. If they call you by a very familiar name, they treat you that way. But if they call you by a proper name, they treat you properly. I always knew when I was in trouble when I was a young child, because my parents would use my given name, my full name, instead of my hyphenated name. And whenever I heard my name, whenever they would say Vincent, all they had to say was Vincent. And I said, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. Now what did I do? We even do it. If someone calls you by your surname, you act accordingly. People who think that names don't change personality should go to Hollywood and speak to the millions of actors that have changed their name, and all of a sudden the world knows them. And before that, no one knew them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I'm certainly one of them, I must say. But I also should tell you that I have been in metaphysics, and I have been in this close to 40 years now. I'm just hitting now the 28th year of my radio show. I've died 3 times. So I've been to the other side, which is not really the other side. It's just like here. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but I have spoken and I know a lot of people. And I'm going to say this, and people get upset when I say this, 80%, and I use that as my own statistic. But I would say about more than half or 3/4 of what's being taught in metaphysics is all bunk. It's all BS. It's just made up garbage. And I'm serious. And the unfortunate part about that is that the people, ex-religious people, who were not satisfied with whatever religion they were prescribing to, come into metaphysics and they bring in all that jargon, dogma, and all the nonsense that religions make up, and they bring it into metaphysics. So now all of a sudden in metaphysics we have sin. We never had sin before. There's no
Right.
such thing as sin in
And if it
metaphysics.
isn't sin, it's bad karma.
You know, when you study back in the East, as opposed to studying karma and all these laws here, you get the essence of truly what it is all about, not what it has become. I'm against religions, not because it's a religious thing. I'm against religions because it's run by men, and men have egos, and egos, they have to always be king of the hill. I've
Yes.
walked into churches around the world that are made of gold. Why do you need a gold church when parishioners are starving to death?
Yes, absolutely.
So what happens is that in this country, we teach karma, and I love when people say it too, we teach karma as a bad thing. If you believe that karma is a payback and that it had to happen, then we need to celebrate all the rapists and the incest and all the people that murdered somebody, because they're just doing karma's bid. So we
Right,
should
right.
celebrate them for helping that person when they killed that person, that it actually helped that person to move on. You know, this is such craziness. This is just such nonsense.
It is. And I've thought maybe because we're in the body state where separateness and duality reign, maybe that's what makes us feel so separate from a divinity or a divine consciousness, the universal mind, the source. I like what Ramakrishna said about religions are like the lenses of cameras taking pictures of the same building from different angles. In a way, I understand that it's important because that's a view of something larger than we can describe. But to that disconnect, that feeling of punishment and reward, have you ever encountered a spirit that talked about being punished or rewarded for what they did?
You're talking about mediumship,
Yeah, or
speaking to the dead. My mind is not in that realm of existence. My mind is in a very different realm of existence. I get different information. I don't look for death. I don't look for accidents. I don't look for any of that stuff.
right, right.
I look for building blocks. That's what I look for. So when I have a communication between someone that has passed on and with a living person, that conversation that goes back and forth. In fact, many
Yes,
times people say to me, "Oh my God, I felt like I was sitting with my father. You
yes,
sounded like my
yes,
father. The
yes,
cadence of your voice changed that I remember, and you used phrases that he has used
yes.
because that's how he's talking to me." Instead of looking for "I love you," which every medium practically says, "I love you," they love
Depends
you,
on
they're
the parent.
happy. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay. So
Right.
after we get through that nonsense, which is not nonsense, I'm not putting down anyone, because believe me, I was a teacher that used to teach these principles and they did help me. But now I realize that the principles, they were correct. It was the teacher that was not teaching the
Yes.
premise of that principle. And the
Yes.
premise of all principles are: have a better life, enjoy
Yes.
yourself, create something from your existence, create something that propels the replications of life and of the universe. And that's what basically we are. We are just another building block for this universe. You know, the universe is actually expanding. They're saying now that within a very short period of time, a couple of million years relative to time, the universe will have had expanded as much as it has expanded, and will start to retract and come back to
Hmm.
that point of finite. Scientifically speaking, we know that as a fact, not just a theory, it is actual a fact. And so what happens with people, we truly believe that we're supposed to suffer in life because that's what religions teach, and that's what
Mhm.
society teaches.
Teaching us that just be patient and, there must be suffering involved. Why? Why
Because
should
that's
it
the way you
suffer?
keep slaves in line. You take away their dignity, you take away their source of income, and you allow them to have what you want for them to have in their lifetime, and that's it. We are slaves. You have to realize that in America, we used to have slaves. We actually had slavery. Well, we still have slavery right now. It's called
Yes.
minimum income. When you direct someone's life because that's how much you're going to pay them, because that's what they're worth for your financial gain, what happens is that people start to rebel. And when they start to rebel, religion comes in.
Because they're seeking a way to be bigger than they feel.
And what religion teaches us, that we are sinners and that we deserve nothing, and that our rewards are not at this particular time in our existence, they're in some other existence. So we should suffer. And so what happens is that we are not allowed, we do not allow ourselves to think different than that. We think differently than what is considered the average or what everyone else is taught to think. Then we become a heretic. We become a traitor. We become a whistleblower. We become all those words that have a negative connotation where they should be exalted because they're bringing truth. When you study, karma over here is used as a payback. You have a crappy life because you were a crappy person in your last
In a
life.
last life that you don't even remember.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well, in the East, the way it is actually taught, it's taught as a continuation of the cycle.
The story continues.
And to show you the difference of that is that the life that you're born into, in other words, your family, well, that's kindergarten through middle school, because you have no choice there. You have absolutely no
Right.
choice. You have to go and take these classes, and this is what's going to happen. And that basically is childhood. You're told how to think, what to eat, when to go, everything. Most of us who are accused as being bad parents, really, we're bad parents because we want to save our children's life. And we have to say no quite often. So all of a sudden, the child starts to understand what punishment is all about. Then what happens is that all of a sudden, we're living a life that is karmic in nature. Everything is a payback from yesterday. When we go to college, all of a sudden we start realizing what karma really is all about. And this is how it's taught in the East, that karma is a choice that a soul chooses to continue learning about. And that's exactly what college is all about. You go to the college that you choose, you go to the classes that you choose, you take the study that you want, you take the master degrees that you want. No one tells you what to do. That is karma. And what you are doing, you are continuing your education of learning. And that's what karma is about. When you move from one lifetime to another lifetime, because someone killed you in the last lifetime, does not mean that they're going to come around and kill you in this lifetime. So what I'm trying to say to everybody, listen to yourself. If something really sounds so strange and so ridiculous, and there isn't any scientific background to it or basis for it, question it. You are not a sinner. You are not a bad person. And the life that you have is because of you.
Absolutely. We are more creative and capable. Do you think that people get kind of stuck in that childhood mentality of like, I must obey?
It's not that you're stuck there, it's that you have three minds that talk to you all the time to make your decisions. And the three minds are the child in you, the parent in you, and the adult in you. And they're all alive all throughout your entire life. Let's say you're walking down the street and you look into a window, it's a jewelry store, and you see this nice tennis bracelet. If you look at it and the thought comes, oh, you don't deserve that. Well, that's the parent in you speaking. Then the next thought is, well, I'm going to buy it anyhow. I don't get the hell with you. I'm going to buy it. That's the child buying it. And if you go in and buy that bracelet under that guise, you will never, ever, ever enjoy that bracelet because it will always remind you of something that you were not supposed to have. You were not a good child.
Yes.
But when the adult in you looks at the bracelet, they don't see the price of it. They see the worth of it. Is it worth it for me to have this in my life? What will it do for me in my life? And whether you buy it or not does not matter, because you will always walk away feeling satisfied, because you are an adult and you are making adult decisions.
Yes. And that happiness that comes with that adult decision is sustainable.
By the way, as you notice, I am playing devil's advocate with you because we don't have any calls, so I can do this with you.
Yes, you can.
So let's
Happy
talk
about
about that
it.
word happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, it's BS. There's no such thing as happiness. There really is no conceptual thought of happiness.
As versus joy or in totality?
There's no such thing as happiness. It's a made-up concept. It's an elusive butterfly. Because if you take 50 people and put them in a room and ask them, each one of them to tell you what happiness is, each one of them will have a completely different answer. And each one of them will have the same answer for the next question. When are you happy? And they'll all have the same answer. When I'm not sad. So the thought is that the only time that you can have happiness is if you're not sad. The way the body works, especially women understand that, because every month you go into a cycle. Well, we go into cycles every single day, every single hour. We're in a different cycle. And so there are up and downs. And life is just like a roller coaster. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down.
Yes.
The body cannot be up at the same time all the time. It cannot be happy, happy, happy. Oh, everything is good.
That would be a little
because you
crazy.
will burn out your liver, and you will burn out your gallbladder, and your pituitary gland will go crazy because they need to shut down.
Oh,
So most people, as soon as they have a happy, they do enjoy it for a half a second, because the next thought becomes, oh, sadness is right around the corner, because sadness always comes. So if we look at the concept of happiness, really, what is happiness? It is only sustainable when everything is working perfect, 100% perfect. And if there's one minute of a disparaging remark within that thought, boom, there goes the happiness. You're sad again. There's a better word. There's a better thought. And I started using this as a manic depressive personality that I am. I started using this 3 years ago. And I no longer wait for happiness to happen, because that is the fall. You keep waiting for happiness to happen, but because you haven't had it for a long time, because nothing that you can buy or receive can keep you happy 100% of the time. It's impossible. Well, not even a lover, not even a job, not even anything that you could imagine that befall you by some miracle that comes your way. Yeah, you'll be happy for half a second, because then you'll want for something else. So the word is, and when I started using this 3 years ago, in conjunction with something that I create for myself to focus my mind, which is on my mandalas, what happened was that I no longer took psychotropic drugs. I no longer needed uppers or downers. I no longer have depression.
Because you didn't have the expectation that it should be a particular
No, because I learned that
or...
the word happiness doesn't exist. There's no such word as happiness. I mean, there's no such true concept as happiness. But there is a word, and the word is, I am content with my life. I can be content when I have, if you want to use the word happiness, when everything is going perfect, I can be very content. I could also be very content when I'm very sad and down. Contentness of my life and sadness can exist in the mind at the same time. Happiness and sadness cannot exist at the same time, because they are opposite concepts.
Extremes, yes. Oh, that's beautiful.
So if you live a life of being content, you sort of not plateau, but that roller coaster. You don't. Your highs are not that high, and your lows are not that low. You kind of just like move along. I'm not saying I don't get depressed, because there are days that
Sure.
I feel that cloud coming over me. But before, it used to stay with me for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 4 or 5 years. And it's just a constant not feeling bright. It's always feeling dark because I was waiting for happiness to come to turn the lights on. I didn't know the lights were on. I was just expecting bright lights instead of just having a light that I can see what I'm doing and continue my life. We expect too much out of the word happiness.
Yes. I think we also externalize that, not just our concept of the divine mind or the universal mind, but we forget our connection with each other. And maybe that's true about happiness because we see it as something outside of us that will make us that way rather than finding that inside. I love that. And that's a really powerful, for lack of a better word,
It's a
affirmation.
mantra.
There you go, a
It's
mantra.
it's a
A
way of life.
mantra.
I discovered that when I was with the cows. I fed cows. And I looked at the cows that were in the pasture under the tree, just chewing their curd.
Mhm.
And I looked at them and I said, oh my God, that's what I want to be. They're just contented cows. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Oh, it's
Exactly.
beautiful. I've learned a lot from animals. I think when I was younger, I felt closer perhaps to animals than people. I figure people are pretty cool too, but I wanted to ask you, as you have used your gift and opened it to new avenues, because you were the psychic consultant on Ghost Whisperer, you have worked with police to solve crime, you have worked with medical professionals, and you work with individuals that range from people that would consider themselves very basic in their existence to very elaborate expressions of
Every
humanity.
walk of life. What you're saying is from every walk of life.
Yes, from every walk of life.
Mhm.
And with your life after death experience, cumulatively, how would you enunciate the perspective that it's given you from maybe someone who doesn't see life, the perspective of a psychic medium?
Well, we're not different than anybody else. And I don't think I have a gift. I think I have a talent.
You do.
And I have a very natural talent that everybody possesses. It's like everybody can dance. Even people that don't have legs can dance.
Yes.
So everybody can dance. What type of dancer you are and how good you are at it, of course, that's your DNA, that's your genetics.
I definitely know that people all are psychic and that they all could develop their mediumship.
How it really works, I'll give you a quick idea of being psychic, because that doesn't mean anything. When you say that everyone is psychic, I mean, really, what does that mean?
Yeah, maybe aware. How do you?
You know, you're right. The question is right. Everyone is psychic. But they have to realize, when are you psychic? There are people who are psychic almost all the time. They get hunches all the time. Then there are people who are psychic. They're driving down the street and they say, I should go into that store. I bet you I'll find something. And sure enough, they find something because
Like
it's
an
a psychic feeling.
impulse. Yes,
It's
yes.
an impulse, right, right. When we are born as pure psychic individuals, because that's what the spirit world is all about. There is no voice in the spirit world.
Yes.
There's no speaking in the spirit world. There is a communication, a knowing.
A
A
knowing.
knowing.
Yes.
And when I met John Holland 20 some odd years ago, he was my student, the psychic medium John Holland. And he said to me, after I got to know him, he said, if I ever write a book, the book is going to be Born Knowing. And that was exactly his first book,
Oh,
Born
I
Knowing.
love
I
this.
never
Yeah.
understood what he meant by Born Knowing, but now I do. In the sense that you are born with incredible information, except I don't have voice. You don't have speech and you don't have language. So the only way that you can communicate is by body language and by mental thought.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's how it is to interpret.
That's how you are. And unfortunately, we lose that psychic ability to communicate what we want to someone else without verbiage. We lose that when we start to learn how to speak. We don't rely on that any longer. Now we rely on our voice. And then, of course, imagination is all psychic. Anyone that invents anything or thinks of anything, that's a psychic thought. The most amazing thing is that it's said that everything under the sun has been invented.
I often get people asking me, why should I develop my psychic ability? What would you say to that?
Well, why would I want to be smart?
Excellent
It gives
answer.
you an advantage in life. I have an advantage in life. I know when things are going to happen to me. I know how they are going to happen. And if I don't get nervous and get away from the psychic part of me and go more into my logic mind, I'll know what the outcome would be.
Yes.
As a psychic, we're human beings. We have our own frailties and our own fears and our own conceptual thoughts of what our place is. The advantage of being psychic is an incredible advantage. Like I
Yes.
said, it's like 2 months ago. I walked into my home, and I just moved into my home just a couple of years ago. And I walked in, and it has all its upgrades and everything new. And I don't know why. I just said, oh my God, I'm going to have water problems. I know I'm going to have water problems.
You know
And,
why.
yeah. And I thought about that, and I said, I've got to start calling a couple of people. And sure enough, I had water problems. About 2 or 3 weeks later, all of a sudden, I had a leak that was under the house. So this is a big deal. And of course, I panicked.
Mm-hmm.
And after I panicked, I said, okay, I need to take care of this. And I asked myself, I said, who is the best person for this job? And I waited for that answer. And when I got the answer, I called up that person. I'm expecting to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping it wouldn't be more than that. And when he came over, he said, let me go crawl under the house. Let me look around. And he came back and he says, gee, I don't know. He says, I could see a leak. I see 2 leaks. He says, but I don't know if there's going to be more. And I said, well, can you give me an idea of what it's going to cost? He says, 2 or 3, or maybe 4.
Mm.
He says, or it could be $60. Well, it ended up being like $300. Because he fixed it so fast. And he was here like 2 hours. Had I called somebody else, I think I would have had a whole different story. That's one of the advantages of being psychic. And what's being psychic? Okay, here's what's being psychic. A person walks into a room, and 1 or 2 of their senses, their 5 senses, will give them information. And they'll say, oh, this is such a pretty color in here. Oh, it feels so nice in here. Or they'll say, that smells nice.
Uh-huh.
When a psychic walks into a room, all 5 senses are telling them something. As soon as I walk into a room, I know that room's history. There's a history to that room.
You can feel it.
Because you can feel it. Right, exactly. And so being psychic really is just tuning into what's around you and then trying to figure out, is this me? Is this I thinking about this? Or is this my intuitive self? Well, that's what you have to learn.
Yes.
The difference between logic and feelings, left brain, right brain.
In honing that skill, natural or otherwise, always natural, but different people tuning in at different states of development, awareness. I don't know what you would call that, awakening. I don't know.
What you're doing is that, if you don't mind me saying, is
Uh-huh.
that you're saying the word psychic as being like, this is the best thing. No, it's just like playing piano. It's the ability of music or the ability of art or the ability of teaching. That's all it is. It's the property of a human.
Yes.
It's what we're capable of doing. It's no big deal.
Exactly.
It is no big deal. Anybody can do this.
Mm-hmm.
The big deal about it is how you do it and how you study. I've studied for years. I've had many teachers. In fact, I've been extremely fortunate in my journey of this lifetime so far because I've met many, many masters.
Yes.
Have shaped my life, have shaped my thinking, and has shaped what I'm creating in life. And the majority of these masters and these gurus that I have met were ordinary people, like the lady next door who one day said to me, Vincent, maybe you need to look at this from a different perspective. She changed my entire life.
I had an occurrence Uneducated black male Southern telephone operator. And I had called, I was trying to make a connection during an extremely painful, turbulent time in my life with a child custody battle. And I had called a friend, and that was before cell phones, or before I knew there were cell phones. And he just said, "Aw, child, you don't have to impress nobody. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to impress anyone." And it was such a huge relief. That was the universe talking.
Yeah, that's exactly
Very
what
powerful.
That's exactly what Tracey needed at that time. And I love this expression also. I was there at the right time because I got the right message. I don't care where you would have been, you would have gotten that message because you were looking for an answer for that question.
Yes.
So it could have been that man that gave it to you. You could have been on a bus. You could have been in a church. You could have been on a plane. You would have gotten that message. You could have been reading a magazine and you would have gotten that message. What the saying is that when the student is ready, the master will appear, or the teacher will appear. It has nothing to do with human. It has to do with mind. What it really means is that when you're ready to learn, the knowledge is there. Partake of it. It's just like if you're thirsty and you're ready to drink, the fountain is right over there.
Just there, been waiting for you.
It's been there for eternity.
I think truth is embedded in everything, and it just is when we slow down to pay attention to it. It's there. It's there for us to see and hear and feel.
What makes life bad, what really destroys a person's life, is fear. Frightful personality, you will not have a good life. I'm sorry to say, but that's a truth. That's a truthism.
Mm-hmm.
Because what robs us of exploring our potential is the fear of being criticized by someone else when we're trying to reach for the stars. This is why you never tell your friends, especially your close friends and your relatives, what you have in store for your goals. Never, ever tell them your goal. Because if they laugh at them, you will laugh at yourself. Predictably so, you will fail. Because that's what you're going for. So it's not a person's inability to have a better life or the absence of knowledge to have a better life. It is the thought of finding the strength within yourself to do something, whatever it is, to create something in your life. There are many, many people who work in hospice. I'm a volunteer. I love volunteering. I don't volunteer any longer, but now I get other people to volunteer, and I make sure that they volunteer. And I miss volunteering. I actually miss volunteering. And I did it selfishly because I knew that if I was volunteering, I wouldn't have time to complain about my life.
I understand doing things like that.
All right. So in a strange way, a selfishness is not really a selfishness.
Right.
I'm a very giving personality. I really am. I don't know why, but I have this need to just fix everybody's life. I don't know why. I give as much as I can give. Many, many times people walk into my house, they'll admire something. They go home with it.
Uh-huh. I'm the same way. If it makes you happier than me, take it.
Yes, I just give away art away that I've treasured for years. I love this piece of art that it comes from my childhood and everything. And someone walked into my house and they just fell in love with it and they went home with it. And she said, "Oh, I'll bring it back." I said, "No." I said, "If you want to bring it back, but you don't have to bring it back. I'm not giving this to you. I'm sharing this with you."
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because I knew that's the way she would accept it. But I'll never forget, I met this girl and went out for dinner, and we went out again. It was coming along very nice. We got to know each other. And she said to me, I think it was the third date, she said to me, she looked at me and she said, "Vincent, you're the most selfish person I've ever met."
What?
And I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry if that's the impression you're getting, but I have a life of service." She says, "Oh no," she says, "I've spoken to people that you have helped." She says, "Your work with children has been incredible." And I said, "Well, why are you calling me selfish?" She says, "This is the third time I went out with you." She says, "I asked you on the second time that we went out to pay the bill. You would not allow me to do that. We went out for coffee. You would not allow me to do that." She said, "And that's why I call you selfish." I said, because I wouldn't let you pay? She says, no, because you wouldn't allow me to have the opportunity of feeling great because I gave something to someone.
Ooh.
And when she said that to me, I realized that by my not allowing someone to do something for me, was robbing them of the pleasure of giving. Well, I became such a taker now. It's unbelievable.
Shameless, just shameless.
Absolutely. Want to give it to me? I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
I wanted to explore a little bit. You had sort of briefly indicated it, mentioned it when we were talking about happiness and the fact that really the best way to look at that, or the most true way to look at that, is to be able to say, I am content with my life. And you had mentioned a little bit about, we were calling that a mantra or an affirmation. And you briefly mentioned mandalas. Let's spend the rest of the time here, if you will, and tell us a little bit about mandalas.
When I went through my third near-death experience, which was 4 years ago, I died on an operating table, cardiac arrest. Probably was gone less than 15 minutes. They supply someplace from between 12 and 15 minutes, somewhere around in there, which is an extensive time. I've always known my guide ever since I was a child. He introduced me to my two new guides, who I lovingly call them Manny and Jack, because they've given me their name as a yet. But they've never incarnated. They've always been in the spirit world. And when they did incarnate, they were always involved with a guru or a shamanism or healing or something like that, which is the world I live in. And they taught me about mandalas. I have known about mandalas ever since I started studying. Mandalas are thousands of years old. And what it is, it's a circle, actually. And the way it's constructed, the colors and the geometric shapes that are in it and everything, when you focus upon a mandala, it changes the brain's chemistry of what we see. So I needed to lose weight. And one of the reasons why I was having heart problems, because I was like 70 pounds overweight. Well, I lost 70 pounds in about 9 months.
Wow.
And which is easy to do. Anybody can lose weight. Anybody can lose weight. It's keeping it off that you can't. And the reason why you can't keep it off, because the picture in your mind is of a fat person, the person you desire not to see. And that's the way we live most of our lives, fearing everything that we did wrong. And that's what stays in our mind. So when you focus in on the mandala, which is created through my psychic ability, my photography, and also a questionnaire that someone fills out, I get to understand what that person's problem is. So I create a mandala which has a subliminal messages in them, but they're created by the colors and the choices that someone picks out. And when you focus in on them, you change what the perception in your mind of what you should be. I lost the 70 pounds. That was 4.5 years ago. I went to a doctor after about a year, and he looked at me, and he said to me, and this is the first time I ever heard this from a doctor, because I always heard the opposite my whole life. He said, Vincent, you need to put on some weight. You're too thin. Never heard that before. I was like on cloud nine when I heard that. It took me 2 months to put on 6 pounds, because that's how well this mandala works. I have this lady, who I've never met, by the way, but she purchased a mandala from me 2 years ago. She lost 110 pounds. Not only has she lost 110 pounds, but she's kept it off. Not only has she kept it off, but she now has created a whole different persona for who she is and what her life is all about. And her life has gotten so incredibly great. I have a mandala that I created. It's called Financial Abundance. I still don't like that name. That will be changed. But I had this girl by the name of Michelle, who lives in Arizona. And when she called me 7 months ago, she was being evicted. Her furniture was going out on the street. She was losing everything. She lost her job. She lost her husband. She was down. She had no money. She was going into a shelter. And I said to her, I'm going to create one for you. I'm not going to charge you. I said, but when you feel like it, I want you to take, it's $50 for a mandala. I said, I want you to take that $50 and give it to a charity and send me the name of the charity that you gave it to. I said, because you have to pay for it. And the reason why you have to pay for it, because if you get something for nothing, that's what it's worth, nothing.
Yes.
So anyhow, I created this mandala. I have a letter, which I'm not going to read, but in essence, what the letter said, I just received this a few weeks ago. Dear Vincent, I have been using your mandala every single day, sometimes 5 times a day. And she says, it is incredible. Not only did I get a job, not only did I pay back people, she says, but I now have a new apartment. I have a new job, a new apartment, and I am sending you $100 because I want to gift out to 2 of my friends a mandala.
Wow.
And it's just so delightful for me to hear her say that, because when I spoke to her, she was so down. But here's the kick. She says, and here's another thing. She says, I feel so much better about myself. Why? I said, because a mandala allows you to bypass the parts of you that you don't like and see your greatness. And that's exactly what it does.
A focal point. That's
exactly
amazing.
what it is. Exactly.
Yes. What a great use for that.
And I have been creating these now for 3 years. And I have to tell you, of everything I've done, and I love everything I do, I feel so good about these mandalas just because I could see someone change in a short period of time in front of me. It is the most incredible thing. And I know when people don't want to change their life.
Yes.
When they get the instructions on how to use it, they say, I have to meditate 5 minutes a day with this.
5 minutes? I was thinking, how many times? How many minutes?
3 times a day. So 5 minutes just to look at the mandala. And in fact, I had this woman that called me and said this to me. And I said to her, I said, you know what? Send me back your mandala. I said, I'm not sending you back your money, but I will apply it to something else, because it took me 3 hours to make your mandala. And they do take hours to make. Yeah, because I'm just neurotic about them. They have to be perfect. And I even send them out and tell people, if you don't like it, let me know. I'll tweak it. Each one is individually made.
Wow.
And then I destroy it. After it's made, I destroy it so it can never be made.
Just for that person.
Yeah. Anyhow, you know what? I said, I am so sorry that you had ordered a mandala, because now you have another reason why to hate yourself, because here's your help and you don't want to do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm very sorry that I have introduced that into your life. She said to me, she says, that's the way I've always felt in my life. I said, could you please use it? I said, and then call me up and tell me that it wasn't great. When she called me back, she ordered them for her children.
Oh, that's wonderful. Vincent J. Barra, you are the man, and I am so thankful that you decided to come on the show. If you want to reach Vincent, his website is vincentmyfuture.com, and if you'd like past episodes of the show, you can find them at mediumtracylockwood.com or on YouTube. We will see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective, and remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.